In the song, he says, I took my baby to the doctor with a fever, but nothing he found. By the time they set the streets, they said she had a breakdown. So in this song, he references Billie Jean, who is then referenced in other songs and album, like in Billie Jean. He keeps talking about this girl who's annoying him. So I'm guessing this girl is probably a girl who's like a fan or someone who's obsessed with him, who wants something from him. And later on in the album, in the song Billie Jean, we finally hear who this Billie Jean girl is and what she wants from him. So that's really funny. In the song, he also talks about the media. He also talks about like not paying attention to them and all this stuff and how he should do his own thing. So he was kind of sort of taking shots at like, Rolling Stone magazine and all this stuff and just saying, I'm gonna go out my own way and do my own thing, and that's me. And that's awesome, MJ. You do your own thing. But yeah, that was the song Wanna Be Starting Something. And then in the song, it ends off with this whole sort of repeating lyrics of mama say, mama kusa, mama say, mama sa, mama kusa. So basically, mama sa, mama kusa, which has also been used in other songs like in Rihanna's Please Don't Stop the Music and all that. It's actually in the language Douala, which is from Cameroon. So it's really cool that he was infusing African rhythms and African music into his songs. And he was getting inspiration from all of these different places. And I thought that was such a cool thing to do. Like, I love that. It just shows, how he really has an ear for these kind of things. Like, yeah. And it was a great way to end off the song. And yeah, he also talks about how, Billie Jean had a breakdown and how Billie Jean is always talking when nobody else is talking. He references Billie Jean again. And I found it interesting how he says she had a breakdown. And I think this was kind of referring to how, this was probably referring to when Billie Jean got pregnant. And so I think it was maybe a little known to that. That's just what I think. But this album really isn't that deep, but it does tie a few different things together. But this album is meant to really be an easy listen. It's literally an album about getting up and dancing. That's literally the whole point of this album. But it's also to thrill you and make you think about like how, okay, you can really make, weird stuff or like creepy stuff popular. Like it was the 80s and it's now, and yeah. So then the album then, gets a little slow when we get into the first ballad of the album, which is Baby Be Mine, which is like the quintessential R&B song of this album. And one of the first really proper modern R&B, like sort of, especially like black R&B songs, ever. And Baby Be Mine, not much to talk about. It's a love song. Basically talks about how he wants this girl to be with him, to spend time with him. In the song, he says, I can't sit still, you thrill me, baby be mine. So basically invoking that whole theme of Thriller again. Thriller, this album, Thriller, is not just about, it's not just about being thrilling in a loving context, sorry, in a scary context, but also being thrilling in a loving context, being thrilling in the like, oh my gosh, this is a thrill, like this is giving me adrenaline, but I love it, it's pushing me. Even the song When They Be Studying Something, it pushes you. It's like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, and like, you know what I mean? That's what it does to you. It's a really great song. Move on to the next one. Then we get into another R&B sort of ballad-like song with Girl Is Mine. And so Girl Is Mine is, on this song, he features with his longtime friend and collaborator, Paul McCartney. So Paul McCartney, who you don't know, then you're literally living under a rock. He's one of the members of the Beatles. He also made his own band and has done his own solo music. Um, Paul McCartney and MJ have always had, for a while, had a really great relationship. In the 70s, they did a song together called Say Say Say, which was a number one hit. So it just goes to show the really great friendship that they had. So obviously, it wouldn't surprise me at all that MJ would come to Paul McCartney and be like, hey, I'm recording a new album. Do you want to do a duet with me? And they did it. It's a great song. And the song is basically about two men who are fighting over a girl with like words and are trying to diss each other and throw shade and be like, no, I'm the better person. And then this one's like, no, I'm the better person. I love the harmonies on the song. I love how their voices blended together so well. And it goes like doom 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 doom. The song is very groovy. It's just a nice vibe. It's just really nice. I like it, you know? It's a cool song. And it was really cool to have a song which was a male duet song. I don't think there have been many songs where it's like at that time there weren't really like many songs, very few songs where two men sang together, especially in that way. I think it was the sort of first kind of song where you had a male duet and these men are like one does a verse and one sings another verse directly responding to another person. And I love how like towards the end of the song the men are like talking properly, and it just gives you an idea of the kind of relationship Paul and Michael had and how they were jokesters together, and it's just really sweet. It was cool. um yeah, I love it. I can't believe it. The girl is mine. Excuse the horrible singing, but I love it. I love it. And then yeah, I love the bridge of the song, and yeah, it's a great song. Girl is mine. Not much more to say. It's funny though because about 17 years later, no, about what is it, 16? About 16 years later, in 1998, the year I was born, by the way, there's a song called "Boy Is Mine," which actually came out with Brandy and Monica, and the song was actually inspired. It was paying homage to "The Girl Is Mine," by MJ and Paul McCartney. So that was the girl version. So it's really cool how all of these different songs inspired so many different artists, which is not a surprise because I've heard quite a lot of artists who say the first album they listened to, one of the first song, they loved, whatever, was Thriller. Like Jason Derulo, he's mentioned it, Chris Brown, all of these people. Um, and then we move on to the fourth track of the album, which is Thriller. And I mean, what's there to say? Thriller was a smash. Video was incredible. First, really, or one of the first really like proper cinematic videos. It was amazing. It was also a big hit because around this time in 1982, MTV had just started the year before 1981. So MJ became the first black artist to be heavily rotated on MTV. He really broke social barriers, and that's why this album is so big because there was just so much controversy and so much stuff that was going on with the release of this album. And it's amazing that MJ really fought for black people's rights like in music and representation, because back in the day, as an artist being black, all that was important was the sound. People are happy like you're making good music, but they didn't want you to be in the limelight. They didn't want you to get attention or get paid or whatever. They just wanted your music and to use you. And when I say they, I'm referring to like white people and Americans and stuff. You know what I mean? That's just how it was. But MJ was really one of the first people of color in music to really, stand for getting representation and getting the popularity and the recognition that he solely deserved and worked hard for. And I truly respect him for that, especially being a young musician, up and coming artist, really doing his thing. Give him mad respect for that. And that was awesome. And I already said before that Thriller was in the National Registry. The beginning of this album is perfect where you hear the footsteps coming in. I love how even, though it's a song, you really picture a music video in your head when you listen to it. It's kind of like when you read a book and like, you visualize things in your head. It's a similar thing. Like, I just love it. I just love the progression of the song, how, you hear the footsteps and then you hear the it's like the perfect Halloween song, like scary song. It's perfect. Like I don't even have to get into it. You guys already know. It's an incredible song. And the song, the lyrics are basically directed towards the fact that you are going to get captured. You're most probably going to die. You're most probably going to get infected or become a zombie or whatever it is. So stay with me, stick with me, girl, and we might make it through. But as you know, according to the music video, they don't make it through. And it's a really cool thing. It's Thriller. In the song, the song makes use of cinematic sound effects, horror film motifs, and just general like scary sort of like thrilling themes. And it's the quintessential perfect song for the album. And I'm happy that he put it in the middle and not at the beginning, so that he loosens us up as the listeners of the album to really get prepared for this big song. And it comes out amazing. Amazing. And we also hear Vincent Price's voice. Vincent Price is this famous horror actor and also like voice narrator from like back in the day. He passed away in the 90s quite a while ago, but he was really famous. He's known for being in House of Wax and other movies. Really famous dude. He did the voice at the end of the song, you know, Terraziel's neighborhood and whatever. And I'm really happy that MJ put that at the end of the song. It was a really great way to end it. And with that creepy laugh, ha 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 ha. It's amazing. It's Thriller. You know, this is why this album was perfect and is like the best because it really stuck to the theme and went along with it, you know, and it's awesome. Then we get into the next song of the album, which is Beat It. And Beat It was you know, this song was very different from all the other songs on the album because it was really the only rock song. It was like the rock song on the album. And it was basically like, you know, MJ, I would say, like, first really proper rock song. And you know, I love the guitar solo in the song, and the song is basically about standing up for yourself, standing up to people, talking about how you don't have to get into a physical fight in order to stand up for yourself. You can walk away from the fight and just leave the people to be, you know, who they are. When they go low, we go high. It's that sort of thing. And in the song, he also says, showing how funky and strong is your fight, which I thought was really interesting because it kind of links to some lyrics in Girl Is Mine where he says, I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover. I'm a lover, not a fighter. So in this album, you know, MJ really uses music as a medium of communication, as a way of saying you can use your music, you can use like your passions, whatever, to, you know, to speak out for you and say like what needs to be said. You don't have to fight, you don't have to like get into certain things. Let your funkiness and your grooviness and your like all around amazingness like do the talking, you know. And I love that, you know, you see all of these little links in his lyrics. I don't know if he intended it to be that way, but I think he did, you know. It kind of makes sense. And I love how the song had about 30 seconds or so of that guitar solo and that other music. And it gives you time to really like feel the music and feel and listen to the instrumental and properly like get into the groove of the song and really purely listen to it. You know what I mean? And I love that about him. I love that about the song. Apparently, the song also pays homage to the West Side Story, and that's where inspiration for the song came from in the video. So I thought that was really cool. And so after that, we then get into Billie Jean, which was basically, other than Thriller, like the most famous and most successful song on the album. It was a number one hit. Also, Beat It was a number one hit too. Um, so Billie Jean, in the song Billie Jean, he basically talks about the girl he's been talking about for a minute now, Billie Jean. In the song, Billie Jean is claiming that MJ is the father of a child. You know, she's claiming you whatever, all of this crazy stuff, and he's saying that is not my son, that is not my child. You know what I mean? And we had the do 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 do, and that guitar, I love how it's consistent and it really pushes the story and the suspense of it. Like you feel like you're, excuse me, like you're watching this really like cool like drama unfold, and it's just it's so funny, it's cool. And I love the video as well. It was amazing. And I like how he like keeps disappearing in the video with the detective that keeps trying to come find him. For those of you who've watched it, you know what I'm referencing. um let's see. In the song he says, and he uses like synthesizer pop, which is used pretty much throughout the album. Um, he said she told me her name was Billie Jean as she caused the scene, which basically shows how he's a troublesome girl. And this relates to what was said in Wanna Be Starting Something, where MJ says Billie Jean is always talking when nobody else is talking, telling lies and rubbing shoulders, and they called her mouth a motor. So MJ talks about how this person, Billie Jean, this character, is known around town. She's like this Jezebel. She's like crazy, and everyone knows she's crazy. So why would anyone believe her that he's the father? Well, according to the lyrics, some people did, I guess, because he also says for 40 days and for 40 nights the law was on her side. So he was being forced to pay that child support or else he'd have to go to jail or something. So it just shows you the craziness of the song and what was going on. I just love it. It's funny. It's just, suspense, thrill. Yeah, it's awesome. And even though he does say that the baby had eyes like his, he still claims the baby was not his. What do I think? That was his baby. I don't know. It's not that serious. Um, then after that, we get into another really beautiful ballad like song, which is Human Nature. Human Nature is a beautiful song. It starts with the synthesizer piano. It's really nice. And basically, I guess in Human Nature, he's talking about the human nature of wanting sex or being horny or lustful or something. Because he keeps talking about how he doesn't want to be in his room anymore and being surrounded by four walls. He wants to go out in the city, go on a whim, have fun, and go to the girl of his dreams and like do whatever it is they need to do. And when people say, why, oh, why is he that way? He's just like, it's human nature. I can't help it. Which is funny because it's like, he also turned into a werewolf in Thriller, and you can't help that nature of. It's just interesting when you see these links, when you really think about it. I may be reaching, but I like to think of it that way. It's art, it's supposed to be interpreted, so yeah. Um, and then we then get into the second last song of the album, which is PYT. So this is a more funky groove R&B kind of song. PYT stands for Pretty Young Thing, and it's a pretty simple, self-explanatory song. He says, "I want to love you, I want to be with you." I'd like to think of PYT as like the funky version of Baby Be Mine. You know, yeah, it's basically a very flirtatious, very like I want to be with you, all of this kind of stuff, kind of song. It's really cool. It's a fun song. Fun fact about it though, his sister Janet Jackson did the background vocals for the song. I think also Latoya did some as well, but I know Janet was one of the girls that did the background vocals. So that was cool. I like that. Yeah, great song. Yeah. And then we get into the last song of the album, which then brings it to a sort of slow sort of standstill. You have Lady in My Life, which was beautifully written. And in the song, I'd like to think that the lady is like a symbolic version of his album because in the song, he does talk about how it's interesting because in this album, love is always linked to time. How I want you, baby, I want you to be mine forever and always be with me and all that stuff. And even in Lady in My Life, he talks about how, and baby, through the years, I'm gonna love you more each day. So I think, like, in a way, he was also hinting at the fact that, people will love this album with time as well and it'll grow on them and you know I'd like to think that he could have been, using Lady as a way of representing his album as well. This album is his baby. It's his lady. He loves it. You know? And it's a great song. It's a slow kind of piano, drums. It's very smooth. It's very soothing. It's wavy. You hear him do his harmonies again. Don't you go nowhere. Oh, now let me give you one. Let me give you, babe. Like in this album is, you hear so many ad libs where basically MJ is emphasizing a theme of that album or something. I also wanted to mention how Human Nature is also very introspective, where it was talking about himself and whatever. I thought, that was also pretty interesting. So this is a great song as well, Lady in My Life. It's perfect. This is also the first ever album where I loved every single song. Because whenever you listen to an album, it's quite likely that there will always be at least one song you don't really like or don't really like feel that much. You could be like, okay, but would I listen to it again? Probably not, But this is the first ever album I ever listened to where I repeat it on the daily and love every song. Like I could listen to the song and won't skip a song. The only other album I can think of right now that I love the way like that is One Direction's album 4. And before you judge me, yes, I love One Direction. Okay, I do. But that's basically the album Thriller. And to end it off, I also had a few general notes about the album. Um, Late in My Life, finishes the album nice and slow. Um, oh yeah, I already talked about that. The general sort of genres in the album, which are pump, post disco, rock, and funk. And yeah, we know the success of Thriller. We know how it did. We know it won 8 Grammys, best-selling album. I also wanted to talk about like how MJ set fashion trends as well. I loved the fashion at this time, with the Thriller jacket, the beaded jacket, Billie Jean, all of this stuff. And also his performance at Motown 25 was also really impressive to the point where people already started calling him the king of pop, when he debuted the moonwalk and all that stuff. And this album would eventually become his most successful album, and this is the album that would set him apart from people and would finally give him the respect he deserved and what he so worked hard for. And actually, feel very pleased, to know that this album performed as successfully as it did because that's what he wanted. And I think this album did perform like a million times better than what he probably thought it was going to perform because all he wanted was for Thriller to be better than Off the Wall at least. Saying that it was better and performed better is an understatement. It's a serious understatement because this album showed out and did that thing. So yeah. So that's pretty much it for today's video. And my fidgetiness. This is basically the Thriller album review. Tell me what you think about this review. Tell me any other sort of video ideas you would like to see from me. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope you guys have a splendid weekend. I love making videos and sharing with you guys different pieces of my life and my thoughts. Please stay tuned in for the next video, and I will see you again, Shazwiyt gang. Love you guys. I am